Hello everyone, this is Steve from CG Geek with a new Blender tutorial series. We'll be creating a forest scene. I'll be taking you along through the entire process of creating a forest within Blender. There'll be a couple parts to this tutorial as I'll be making custom trees, setting up the composition, adding all kinds of assets, and then going into the lighting and rendering and compositing. It should be a fun tutorial and you should end up with a very cool looking result and learn a lot along the way. So in part one, I'll be covering creating custom trees and setting up our environment and kind of getting the composition worked out. So let's jump right in. I got a default scene in Blender here, and let's just jump right in. So before you start creating a forest, you kind of need an idea of what you're going to be going for. Now, you can come up with this idea by, well, if you're good at drawing, you can kind of sketch out a forest, or if you like photography, you can take a picture of a forest you want to recreate, or you can do what I did and just kind of go on the web and find an image that you kind of want to recreate and use that as your starting baseline, basically. So I found an image online that had the composition and kind of the trees that I wanted to go for. So that's what I'm going to do, is just open that up in the background here to kind of get us started, give us a little inspiration. So without further ado, I'm just going to hit N to bring up my Properties tab here, go to Background Images, check that little box there, open it up, and Add Image. And then you'll have this here. I'm just going to go Open, and then I'm going to open my reference photo. I'll link in the description for you guys. Alright, so open that up, and then if you go to, say, Front View with number 1 on your numpad and hit 5, you'll see your background image there. Now, this will work, like I said, for composition to kind of get my setup, and also when you're modeling trees, even though they're completely kind of random, it can be helpful to see a real tree and just kind of get the feel for how they grow and split and branch off like that, and give yourself a more natural looking result in the end. So let's go ahead and kind of lay out our ground plane a little bit, just so we kind of know what we're working on. I can close my Properties tab here now with N again, and I'll just delete this cube, and then I'll go Shift A, add in a plane. Now I also want to go ahead right away and move my camera to the side view here, or actually I'm in front view with number pad 1. So to do this, I'm just going to select my camera and then go Alt Control 0, and I'll snap it to front view, and you can see the grid there now laying nicely across the middle. And I'm just going to kind of pull my camera back now with G and then my middle mouse wheel and just kind of drag it back right around there. Awesome. Alright, so just go Shift A now and add in a plane, and we'll kind of use this. Wait a minute, did I already add one? Yes, I did. So if you already added a plane, just grab that and scale it up with S, going into camera view to kind of see how big we need to go. Scale it up a bit, and then we need to add a little detail to it. So I'm going to hit Tab and then W and subdivide it a few times. Something around there looks about a decent amount of subdivisions. Now I'm going to turn on proportional editing down here, so click that and click enabled, and then I can kind of pull this around, pulling all the vertices at the same time. So going into camera view now, you can see the composition is kind of a hill, and I want to kind of recreate that. So I'm going to pull this side down a bit over here, and over here just a little bit too. And if you hit Z, you can see through it, your mesh, and that kind of helps for setting up your ground. So now this corner back here needs to be pulled up, something like that, to kind of create that hill back there. And then this kind of comes downhill over here. So I'm just going to kind of pull that downwards. And you can see it's really easy with proportional editing to get a nice natural fall off. Now that is our basic shape, very basic, nothing fancy about it. But it gets the job done for later when we can come back now and add more detail to it. But that should work. You just kind of want to hide any points too. Like you don't want a sharp point in your mesh like that. Just keep it kind of a nice flow. And that looks like it should do the trick. Cool. So that's all we need to get started on our tree modeling now. I'm going to come back and add more detail to the ground, but I want to jump right into the tree modeling. So I'm going to hit Z, just so that's kind of hidden there. And I'm going to start modeling the trees. So how am I going to do this? Well, I'm going to be using a feature called the Skin Modifier. Skin Modifier is really awesome modifier, And I haven't used it much until this project, where I found it incredibly useful and fun to use. So basically the way the skin modifier works is it works off one vertice, and it just adds mesh around that vertice. And with a subsurf, you can get some really awesome results, and I found it worked great for trees. So basically we need to start with a vertice. So I'm just going to place my cursor at the base of, well, we'll do this tree here first. Go Shift A, and I'll just add in a cube. And you can see the cube has 8 vertices, and we don't need that many. So what I'm going to do is I want the vertice at the center there. So all I have to do is tab into edit mode, make sure all my vertices are selected with A, and then just go Alt M. And I can go merge at center. Now you'll see if I hit G to grab it, I get just one little vertice there. That's all I need. Alright, cool. So let's set up our skin modifier a little bit now. I'll pull this window out just a little bit. And go to our modifiers. Here I'll go add modifier, skin. Okay, and you can see right away you get like the little radius around it. And you don't see anything yet, but if I hit extrude, you can see that you're getting mesh. And if I hit Z, and then hide this ground plane here, I think you can see, no, maybe not. You can't see anything until you start extruding it. So if I tab into edit mode, you can see you get that radius around it, and that's because right now it's the root. So if I hit E to extrude, the root moves, but you can also see I'm getting mesh. So that's really cool. I'll just leave one extrusion there for now, so I have kind of a little box there. And go back into camera view with 0, and go ahead and add in another modifier. This will be the Subsurface Modifier. And this kind of smooths out our skin modifier. I'll just put that to 2, and that's looking pretty decent. Now, that's looking pretty good. I'm just going to select that now and go Smooth Shading over on the tools here. That would be under Shading and UVs. Go Smooth. And then if I tab out of edit mode, no, it's not smoothing. I guess I'll have to wait till after I apply the modifier to smooth that. That's no problem. But also you can see I get some black vertices there, and that might be because the normal's messed up. So if I go recalculate, let me see if that's going to fix that. Alright, that's not going to be a problem. We don't have to worry about that. As soon as I extrude it again, it should all be fixed. And then also, just to make sure you don't have any doubles there, you can also go to your tools over here, and to tools, and go remove doubles. And there you go. You can see I had 2 vertices there, and that was causing an issue. Doing that might clean up an issue as well. Alright, so let's kind of create this tree from the ground up, literally. I'm just going to drag it down the base here with that vertice, and you can see with proportional editing, I'm kind of moving both of them at the same time, but that's okay. And then to scale the skin modifier up, it's Control A. So hit Control A and you can scale it up. So something like that gives you a nice wide result. And I'm just going to kind of extrude along here. You can hit E, pull it out, hit E again, pull it out. And you can see this is a really easy method for creating custom trees. So I'll go E, pull it up there a bit. Now it's time to maybe scale it down a little bit. So I'll go Alt A, or Control A, I'm sorry. And kind of scale it down. And now we have a branch coming off here. So I'm just going to tab into edit mode. And right now you can't see the vertices. Alright, so to see your vertices, it's just this little button down here, which is limit selection to visible. I missed that, but if you check that again, you can see that you see your vertices now through there. And then also for the smoothing, you don't do it over here, you do it through the modifier. You can choose smooth shading and have it done right there. So cool. I was going to go ahead and extrude this branch out here now. So I'm just going to extrude it out a bit, something like that, and then scale it down a little bit with Control A, something like that. And then I can go ahead and extrude it some more. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to play with some of these branch settings over here. So first of all, I want this to be the root. This is basically where the modifier gets like the access information or whatever. So you mark that as root, and it puts that that little dotted circle around down there, and that's where the root is. And then the branch smoothing. This is something that's interesting. It kind of smooths the vertices at the corners there, basically the splits. So if I hit Z, and you can see the geometry there then in those green lines, changing this kind of changes the way those vertices are placed. So I like to go somewhere in the middle with this, somewhere around 0.4 or 0.5 to get the best results. So I'll go ahead and set that to somewhere about that. hit Z again, and I'll go back to modeling. Now this does make your mesh a little bit narrower, so you might have to Control A and scale it up a few places if it's a little skinny now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and continue extruding, pulling my branches up and then scaling them down a little bit as I get up the tree. Here I'll go this ways with one branch, and I'm just going to kind of imagine where this branch would go, extrude it out just a bit, Control A, scale it down a little bit, there we go, nice split, and then extrude it some more. So the skin modifier is really cool and really fun and easy to use, and I liked it a lot. This is really my first project using it a lot, and it's awesome. So as well as going E and extruding, you can also hit Control and then just left click, and that will extrude a point out like so. But that's kind of scaled down too much right now. Let me just do that again. Control, click, and you can see, there we go. And then you can go along your branch. Right about here, I want to scale it down a little bit more. There we go. And then I have a little split here. So I'm going to kind of pan up in my view here and split this that direction and that direction. Alright, then go back to my camera view with 0. And we can kind of place these where we want them. Somewhere right around there is good. Whoops, there we go. And then go extrude and continue on. So really fun and easy to use, like I've said. So I'm going to continue modeling my tree here, just going along this branch. Looks like I'm a little narrow. I might want to start scaling up some of this mesh a little bit. It doesn't have to be exact to the image either. The image is just in case you need it, in case you're kind of drawing a blank on what a tree should look like. So just go ahead and create basically whatever you want. Let your imagination take over and have fun. So extruding and Alt-Aing is what you're going to be doing most of. I mean Control-Aing. I keep wanting to say Alt, but no, it's Control to scale the radius of the skin modifier. So go ahead and model your tree. That's what I'm going to be doing for the branches. I'm not going to show you the whole process of this because it gets a little repetitive. Control A, scale it down a little bit more. I just want to get you guys started, make sure you know everything you need to know before you can go creating your own custom trees. That's looking pretty good. And then, like I said, as you get down the tree now, you're going to want to be splitting more because that's kind of how trees are. So here I might split off this direction again, and then kind of panning out into 3D view. You can kind of come at the end, even if your tree is basically all modeled from camera view, and just kind of grab the vertices and pull them out to give them some more 3-dimension. So you don't really have to worry about that too much. But it sometimes can be helpful with a skin modifier, because if you get too many branches splitting off at the same time, you can have some wonky things happen with the skin modifier. And basically, you just want to keep all the vertices a good distance away, and sometimes adding an extra vertex in there, like this. You could go W subdivide and put another vertex in there. Will help just kind of clean up the mesh a little bit. But I don't need that there right now. I'm just going to go ahead and delete these two vertices and keep going along this ways. But that's just some of the issues you might run into, and those are some ways to fix it. So down here, I'm just going to quick control scale it down a little bit, split this one up there, and take off that direction. All right, scale it down a little bit more, and then take it off this direction with this one. There we go. And then, like I said, you can go into this view and kind of move it around a little bit. So that's looking pretty good for the branches. Now, I want to quick show you guys how to do some of the roots here. So the roots are where it gets a little bit more tangly. The roots are more narrow and kind of go all over the place. And I found the skin modifier worked actually relatively well here. You just kind of have to be patient with it. Because you're starting with such a big trunk and then going off into small little pieces, you kind of have to go in stages. And I'm just going to scale it down a little bit here, extrude it one more time, and then you can see I'm getting more of the shape I want. Alright, and then I kind of want to split here and go off like this does. So I'm going to extrude again this direction, and then Alt Control A, scale it down a little bit, and then continue doing that. Control A, except it has to be a bit more narrow, so you can come back and do that some more. And then you can see I moved my root there. I'm just going to grab that vertice and click Mark Root again. Sometimes you'll get this issue because of the root, like I was saying. You just need to kind of move your vertices around or add in another vertice to clean that up, maybe scaling that one down a little bit. Alright, and then continuing. So I'm going to continue. Whoop, there we go. Jump back here. Kind of working on these roots and making sure they're more scaled down. And this one needs to be scaled down a little bit as well. A little bit overly big there. And this one looks like it's way too big, so scale you down a bit. Alright, so you just kind of want to go for a natural flow. And some of these are a little bit big, so I'm just going to scale them down there. And the more you kind of twist and take the roots, you know, every which and way, the cooler it ends up looking. So don't worry about like, oh, that looks too crazy, because nature is pretty random. And then you can kind of scale down your whole root with proportional editing there in the scroll wheel. So there's one nice root there, and then like I said, you might want another one coming off this direction. So you can kind of abandon the reference image now and just kind of go off and wing it. Pulling that off there, Control A, scaling it down a little bit, and then continuing, Control A, scaling it down a little bit. Extruding some more, scaling it down nice and narrow, pulling it up a little bit, and just kind of having fun, going crazy. You can always reposition it with proportional editing. That's pretty easy, so you don't have to worry about going off the wrong direction or anything. And yeah, just kind of doing that, and then maybe having like a split here that actually comes. Let me just pull these over here a little bit more, maybe. That actually kind of comes off. There we go. Let me just grab that a little bit more. There we go. And overlaps this one or something. Now, something you might run into is when you're moving this branch, is moving both of them. Well, just go to connected under proportional editing, and it'll only follow the vertices that it's connected to and not nearby vertices. So that's an easy fix for that issue. I've ran into that before. And just use connected. So yeah, I'm going to kind of have this come over. Whoops, I just hit F. I don't want to add a face there. I'm just going to have this kind of come over this, like so. And then let's pull my proportional editing down a little bit. Kind of have it wrap over it. And scale it down a little bit with Control A. And take off this ways a little bit. So just kind of doing things like that gives it some really cool looking results in the end. Maybe this one actually could come out as well. And come over this one there. Why not? There you go. Pull it down a little tighter. And you have some natural looking roots. So I'm going to go ahead and continue this tree, just adding more branches and more crazy roots. And then I'll check back with you guys and see what progress you've made. Alright, so here's some progress. You can see I just kind of went crazy up the tree, going every which and way, just adding branches and scaling them down as I go. I did a lot more detail towards the bottom of the tree because that's where the main focus point is. I'll be using these same trees kind of in the background, so I wanted to continue making the tree all the way up, and then you also get some cool shadows coming down from these on your scene if you do it. So that's why I went ahead and created the tree all the way up to this point. There we go. And it doesn't look too bad. You can see I have a little bit more detail down here. And that is pretty good for this tree. But you can see there's like 4 trees bunched up next to each other. And I wanted to show you guys how to continue modeling with the skin modifier onto the next tree. So I kind of have to pull this out a little bit. It looks like I've maybe moved it a little bit with my proportional editing. Just kind of drag it back out there a little bit. Alright, so you can see like sometimes we'll get a little issue like this. And just moving the vertice around. Whoops, got to turn proportional editing way down. It's affecting too much right now. You can see just kind of moving it around a little bit will often just fix your issue. And it's just the modifier trying to calculate which direction to go. And no, nothing to worry about. Maybe I'll scale it up a little bit and scale it down a little bit. Okay, so to continue on with the next tree, say this one here, all you have to do is while you're still in edit mode, grab that root vertice right there. I'm going to call it the root vertice because that's where I have it marked, that circle, and just go Shift D. Pull it over to your new tree and continue onwards. And you can see the root's going to start off moving with every vertice you extrude, but just go back and mark that base as the root, and you can continue modeling your second tree. So really easy and nothing to worry about. So if you ever have issues with lag being like slow or something, your responsiveness being slow, you can turn the render down to just say 2 or 1 down here, and then you'll find much faster viewport working. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and model the rest of these trees, do the same thing there, kind of wrapping these vertices around each other in this crazy trunk that you have here, and I'll jump back to you guys once I finish this tree up. And after about a half hour of playing around with the skin modifier, this is the tree I've come up with. So I'm pretty happy with this. Obviously, I've added more detail towards the bottom with the roots. Kind of had some fun wrapping them around each other and making them look nice and crazy. And then I also just went ahead and added some big branches up top so I can add some smaller branches on later and give it more detail. So it's looking pretty good, and I'm pretty satisfied with it. And I recommend that you spend some time, have some fun, make up whatever crazy tree you have before going on to the next part now. But if you've got something you're pretty satisfied with, you can continue. So what I'm going to do to finish up part 1 here is I'm going to bring back my ground. I had hid it earlier, so I'm just going to go Option H and unhide my ground plane there. And you can see that our tree is pretty much getting lost in this ground now because the roots are all underneath it. So what I'm going to do to kind of bring that back is I'm going to do a little bit of sculpting on my ground here and kind of bring back the trees there. The roots, I should really say. So to do that, go to your sculpt mode right there. And use sculpt draw. That's the same brush that you should have. I want to use that. And then go to Dino Topology here and go Enable Dino Topology. Okay, I don't know why it's Dino Topo, but it's Dino Topology. So go ahead and enable that, and I think 12 should work fine for what we're doing. We can go ahead and turn on smooth shading as well. And basically I need to kind of shovel out some of the dirt here, you could say. So to do that, I'm going to hit F and make my brush a little bigger to start with. And then holding Control will subtract the amount of terrain, and not holding Control will add terrain, like you can see there. So Command Z that. I'm going to hold Control and kind of cut away at the ground in here. So I'm just going to kind of cut away this dirt till I can start seeing some of those roots coming through. You can see that looks pretty cool. So I'll leave that there. I'm pretty satisfied with that. But I don't see these over here yet. So I'm just going to kind of continue cutting away at the terrain here until I see the ground like I want. Basically kind of putting the tree on a hill. So that looks pretty good there. Come down a little bit more. And then the more you zoom in with Dino Topology and the default settings, the more you get detail. So keep that in mind. If I go to Z, and you can see the amount of detail I'm getting as I zoom in here. So that's pretty cool. And I want some more detail up around this trunk. So I'm just going to kind of cut the dirt back so you can see some of these roots, because that's always cool. And you see that a lot in the forest, where you can see some of the roots on the surface of the ground there. So continue kind of cutting this back. Let me see, I have some long ones over here I should be able to expose. Kind of cutting this back. It's looking pretty good. Let's cut this one back a bit. Alright, this one's a little down there. Gotta unbury it. There we go. And it's okay to leave some of the dirt up in the crevices there, you know, like it's kind of piled up there a little bit. But you also just want to kind of take it out so you can see the ground. So I have some here that is getting lost. So I'll just take the ground down some more. There we go. There's some of my roots. Some more in there. And then back in there. Alright, so now you can kind of come back and also add dirt where you don't want the roots visible, or if you're not happy with somewhere. You come back and whoop, just kind of add some terrain, cover up some of the roots that you don't want to see, and it just works pretty well. So it's pretty cool, and kind of a nice method for exposing the roots in the ground. So do something like that. Kind of fill that hole in a little bit there. Make it look natural. And that's looking pretty decent. So you can hit Z every once in a while and just kind of see what roots you still have not exposed. And back here, I might want to kind of carve that back a little bit. Something like that. There's one. I don't really need to see much of these, just a little bit. So something like that is pretty good. Kind of digging a hole. But that's okay. You can kind of take the whole terrain down a little bit. It's a little high. There we go, and that's looking not too bad. So you kind of expose the roots, cut down on the dirt. Let me see, I got some roots in here that I'm not seeing. Kind of cut them back, holding down Control. And there we go. It just takes a little bit of time. And there we go. Ooh, that's nice. There we go. Getting some natural looking roots coming through. Awesome. So you can do as much of this as you want. There's just a little bit more in there that I kind of want to see. Yeah. Cool. Add a little bit more dirt back in there. And I'm not really seeing these down in here. We can go a little deeper there. Awesome. Now you kind of need to check your camera view and make sure that there's nothing hiding it. And you can see the ground is just a little high in here still. So I'm just going to kind of cut that back. And you can see right now it's mirroring what I'm doing. That's just because I have symmetry here. By default, it's on mirror. You can uncheck that if you don't want it mirroring it on both sides. Alright, so kind of cut this back around, making it look like this is a little bit of a hill. And then obviously it kind of goes up and back here a little bit more for a bigger hill. But that's looking pretty nice. And that's about it for part 1. Part 2, we can continue our tree and, well, I don't want to do that, Command Z, and start texturing it, and then placing them around and about in a nice, unique, random fashion. So that's going to do it, guys. I think that should wrap up part 1 of this tutorial series. We kind of got our terrain coming together. It's a little bit hilly. Might just kind of take the hills down a little bit. But it's looking pretty good. And next part, we'll texture these trees and then start duplicating them. So I hope you had fun, and stay tuned for part 2. Bye-bye.